talk about highs and lows for the last 2 weeks.
Our channel is about the next chapter, and we're moving into one of those next chapters at this stage in our lives.
Yes, our babies they got into college and they want to go away and live in the dorms. And we're so excited for them that they got into their dream colleges.
Yes, yes, we are. But that also means we have to have some more conversations about how we're going to pay for their dream colleges
Yes.
and living on campus. And so
So
that's
so we went from being super excited to getting this great news, seeing the joy come over Jacob's face and Ezra's face, and then panic and old thoughts and old beliefs and limiting thoughts came rushing back in, especially for me.
yeah, and for me too, because you know
Well,
it
I'm a
is
little bit louder with my feelings and thoughts than you are. You are able to hold it together a little bit more.
in my own way. But that's what this episode is really about, because Kate and I had to really talk to each other over the last couple of weeks about this next phase and really how to work through the finances, and it's a conversation that we're still having.
Yeah, I mean, the financial aid system, how to pay for college. I'm sure lots of you are in that same boat. You're, you know, right at that level that you're getting ready to think about retirement, think about what your next chapter will be, where you're going to be. And then you realize you might have a 20, 30,000, 40,000, $50,000 loan that's going to pile up pretty fast.
Right. And that is kind of where we're at right now, is having that conversation about how are we going to finance our education, our children's education. It's an earthquake.
I know. Well, that's what it can feel like, you know. But getting back. So I think one of the biggest challenges for most couples in communicating with one another is about finances. Most people don't even bother to talk about finances or how they're going to um, prepare for their future ever. And it usually doesn't get to the point that you're willing to talk about finances until it's too late, until it's too harsh. Um,
And Kate and I are really good, and have become so much better at communicating over the years since we've been together. And if this is your first time joining us, Kate and I met later in life, and we were coming up to our 10-year anniversary being married. But financial conversations are still one that brings up a lot of stuff for both of us.
And it's not necessarily between the two of us, it's generally from where I grew up. I grew up in a family that everything was very separate. My mom took care of all the kids' stuff, and my dad took care of all the home stuff. So if we needed private schooling, if we needed a tutor, if we needed clothes, my mom took care of that. If and my dad took care of all the things that came with the house. So my belief system when it came to the boys getting into these colleges immediately reminded me that it's my responsibility.
Right. And though I grew up in a different type of household when it came to money, because we didn't have any, and, and so those conversations often revolved around not having enough financial stability, and so there was a lot of love in our house, but not a lot of resources, not a lot of money over the years, and so, Kate and I coming together with these different languages surrounding money often lead to some anxiety and some hard conversations that we need to have.
Right. So while I was going through all of that stress and anxiety, because my brain immediately went to, okay, they enter into school in 6 months. I have to find a way to come up with at least another $20,000. Should I get another job? Should I go back to waitressing? Should I like push my business to explode right this second? How am I going to do that? And I started getting pulled in all these different directions, and I was spiraling out of control. And I wasn't communicating with Joe. I wasn't talking through all of this stress. I was just internalizing all of it. And I finally came to this space where I had to say, Joe is not my past. We have a different relationship. I need to get brave. I need to get courageous, and I need to have a conversation with him and say, this is what I hope to see for the twins. I want them to have the opportunities and experiences that I didn't have.
Mm-hmm. And that really was the heart of my goal as well. And even though Kate and I have communicated that certainly over the years, particularly as they've been growing up and moving into college age, it still brings up a lot of stuff in how we kind of think about those communication pieces. And so while Kate was going through those feelings over the last couple of weeks, I was in my head trying to kind of process everything because I'm a processor, and had come to terms with a lot of things that I think Kate was anxious about for myself, but I didn't communicate that to her.
And if you've ever struggled with communicating with your partner, but you have found certain tools that work great, put a comment below.
And I think that can be a challenge for many people too, because life gets in the way. We're all working or going about our normal routines, and these conversations are important and have to be had. But finding solid time to have these conversations can be challenging.
Yeah. And, getting brave enough and understanding what you're going through. That's a big thing for me. I have to, one, recognize that I'm not only struggling to have the conversation about finances or have the conversation about the twins going off to college, but I'm also thinking in terms of when my parents would talk about this, they would get into these blow up fights, and it resulted in the both of them being very separate on all these issues. Neither one of them ever communicated. It just became easier for them to take care of their own thing and not work as a partner. So I had no examples of what it looked like to speak about this. And I have very few people in my life that know how to talk about finances, how to talk about the future. A lot of people have this obligation of, well, this is what she wants, I'm going to do it. And if you're in that boat where you're stressing about how to pay for that next big adventure, that next big thing, it's really important to first look at yourself, recognize how you're reacting. Are you sharp in your tone? Are you fully listening during the moment, or are you shutting down?
Yeah. And, Kate works as a communicator. She's in the communications industry and has spent a long time kind of helping people tell their stories, to communicate with each other and to others. And so she mentioned bravery, and I think that's one of her traits, is that even though we go through these moments of anxiety around finances, she always has the courage to kind of talk through what she's going through, but that also, and she does it in a way that isn't threatening to me, but more in a way to build kind of collaboration with these conversations. And I think for us, the anxiety is still there around finances and communicating and talking about finances and plans moving forward. But how you approach one another with those conversations, expressing that you do have anxiety and where maybe some of it's coming from, can help move the conversation forward.
Yeah. I think once I move past my anxious feelings and I'm no longer in my head spiraling, I remind myself that, one, I love this person, I respect them, and I value them. And so when I walk into that conversation, when I'm fully present, fully ready to move forward and no longer hold on to my anxiety about money or hold on to anxiety about any of those fears that I'm facing, I always approach it with, I know that this conversation is going to be hard, but if I don't have this conversation, it will lead to us potentially becoming more distant, more disconnected, and possibly resenting one another. Whether it is about or living in truth, because if I don't speak it, if I don't get it out, if I don't discuss it with him, that resentment, that fear, that anxiety is not living in reality.
Yeah, and one example of that for us this week was our conversation around, how are we going to fund the boys' next 2 years? So they finished community college.
They did it the smart way. They saved a ton of money. We have a free program here
in Connecticut, yep. And so they were able to go to their first 2 years for free. essentially, and they did save money, and they did well, and they got into their next colleges, and so Kate and I have some plans to help pay for it, but because of the way the world is right now, the way the stock market is right now, there are some question marks about, what's the right way to do it. And Kate and I both have kind of an aversity to taking out loans and having debt, but that also may be an option we need to look at in the short term for this. But Kate knows how strongly I feel about taking out loans, especially student loans. And so that brought up, because she's assuming I'm going to kind of shut it down, cut off any conversation about it, even if we don't do it, shut down a conversation as an option. That was bringing anxiety into her and into her space. And I wasn't communicating to her that I'm open to looking at all options, and whatever we can make work that's the most intelligent, the most financial sense for our future is what we will do, and we'll do it together.
Yeah.
But I didn't communicate that right away, and so we had to have a long conversation this week about that and work through it.
Yeah, it was really good for us because one, we did things slightly differently for our conversations. We didn't sit down on the couch. We didn't because a lot of the times when we have these hard conversations, the twins are very compassionate, loving people. Ezra, who wants to go into psychology, will always become our mediator, and will, no matter what age, whether we want him to or not.
Yeah.
Instead, we decided, let's just get in the car and drive. And what helped, I believe, was because we were both looking forward, it gave us the opportunity to just speak without trying to read the other person's facial expressions. I am hyper aware of people's facial expressions, how they hold themselves. So I will not always fully comprehend what is being said to me because I'm looking at the way they're holding themselves, looking, behaving. And I go, oh, I don't trust that they're fully being honest in this moment. They are trying to protect me or take care of me. One of the other things that you had said earlier today was that once you've been with someone for a period of time, you start developing a shorthand between each other in your conversations. He'll say, well, this and that, and when we hand da 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 da, and so I will assume that he's talking about something else. But if I don't speak up and say, hey, is this what you mean? Before I get emotional, because my brain will start going, oh, he doesn't want me to do this. He wants me to be that. And that.
Right. And that shorthand comes in handy as your relationship grows over time. But it also things can get lost in translation.
Yeah.
And so, you have to step back a little bit and make sure that you're fully communicating your thought to your partner so that, in this case, she is not second guessing. And I am notorious for having a hard face to read. And so oftentimes my expression does not fully communicate whether I believe in an idea, support an idea, dislike an idea. The thinking face. And that's kind of my resting face. And resting thinking face.
Resting thinking face.
Yeah.
The nicer way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that shorthand that couples often have in communicating, you also have to be aware that you need to step back a little bit and make sure that you're completing your thought, that what you're expressing is fully connected to what the other person may be kind of feeling. And then that goes both ways. Because, in the example of the conversation Kate and I had while we were driving, she stepped back and said, well, this is kind of what I'm hearing. Is that what you're saying? And that offered me the opportunity to go, no. What I mean is X, Y, and Z. And that, I think, that could be the path. And that helped clarify for her. But she also opened that space up.
Yeah.
And so,
And I think that's one of the big things that I've always learned from working in union organizing and communication, that you have to repeat back what the person says, say I understand, and then lean in with getting clarification, making sure that you understand both people in the conversation, where you're coming from, where they're coming from, what their expectations are, what you need to accomplish your goals. And if you're thinking in terms of these hard conversations, there's a goal at the end. You shouldn't speak to just lament and work in circles. You should always work towards what's the end goal, what's the desired outcome for this conversation. You shouldn't try to get yourself into a hard conversation just to win.
Right.
It's to understand, it's to connect better, it's to find a common ground between the two of you.
Yeah, I mean, when you're a couple, you are a couple. Yes, you're separate individuals, but you are also one, and you have to kind of you need to work through these conversations with a common goal. Doesn't mean you agree on everything, but the fact that you're willing to listen, willing to consider the other person's perspective, can help move the conversations and your future forward, in a positive way. And another thing to keep in mind is, Kate and I don't have it all together. It's not like we have everything mapped out and are perfect. Obviously, that's what this video is about. The fact that we don't, and we're always willing to learn not only about each other, but we're also always willing to learn how to do a relationship better.
Right.
And so one of the things we're doing now is we're reading a book called Money for Couples by Ramit Sethi, and starting to work through that. Again, having new tools for us anyway to have these conversations is always a good thing, and can build a relationship stronger. You don't have to have everything figured out, but like Kate mentioned, being brave, being willing to take the steps to move forward.
Being respectful, being kind, reminding yourself that the person in front of you is the person you love, that you are excited to spend the rest of your life together.
Until the next time, dream with us.
Dream with us. Talk to you soon. Good. Did we ever say this is Dream with Us, and this is Kate, and I'm Joe?
Nope, I don't think so. Let's do it now.
Okay.
You gonna put your coffee mug down?
No. Not talking to people anymore.